going on, everybody? My name is Jay, and since about 2000, there was a movie that came out called Unbreakable. Starred Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis. It was shot by M. Night Shyamalan. It's a really interesting movie, and kind of changed like the pinnacle of my life to some degree. The character's name on the show was called Mr. Glass, and that had almost become like an adopted nickname for me at that time in 2000. I was born with an extremely rare case. It's called Osteogenesis Imperfecta. And basically, in the simplest of terms, my bones have the consistency of glass. You know, anything could temper them, break them, way easier than the average person. So, found this out, a little bit like right after I was born. I had had multiple fractures and breaks well before the age of 5 years old. I'm 34 years old now, and I think on record I have a combined break, fracture, and surgery statistic right now of about 70 or more, without really counting broken fingers and toes. This is a really interesting topic because not many people really have heard about this. It's a very rare disorder to where very few people survive it, and the people that survive it either have deformities or extreme chronic problems, afterward. I can say, having been injured that many times and still standing and still living somewhat of a normal life, I can tell you me an amazing perspective on, how to take accountability in life and, not really to have any excuses. I see people that have broken a bone one time and then became addicted to Percocets and their life had spiraled out of control. And, to the average person, some people have never broken a bone a day in their life. Others have broke a bone and said it was the worst experience in their life. And I've had that over 70 times in my life. To give an idea, if you break something, a fracture, your recovery time is anywhere from like 3 to 6 months, depending upon how severe. But realistically, having over 70 of those, do the math. I've been injured from a little over a third to almost a half of my life, either spent in casts, wheelchairs, crutches, not being able to move, things of that nature. And as I was growing up, it was a very, very testy type of experience. I spent a lot of my time recovering from injuries while other people were out living their life. I didn't actually start really getting to live my life till I was around 16 or 17 because the breaks literally kept me inside for an extended period of time. I go off on this topic a little bit because I know a lot of people unfortunately believe that something that's happening to them is the worst thing that's ever happened to them. And I ask you, is the worst thing that happened to you stopped you for 3 months being able to do just what you possibly may have taken advantage of? You have these beliefs and thoughts that, bad things are happening to you, but, a lot of times it's self-inflicted. What if it wasn't self-inflicted and the world just gave you a problem that, you had to be super cautious about everything? I can remember back to like my first clear break in my head. I was at a first grade school, and all I did was I put my hand on a railing to walk down the stairs and my wrist snapped. Just like that. That was it. And I remember that because it was the first time I'd ever heard a wet snap in my body. And, through all that, fixing my hand, having the injury, it was like, wow, it was really like prominent in my head, like from a very young age that like, oh, this is real. Like I wasn't, 13, 14, 20 years old where I'm like, I have to change my life. It's like instinctually as a 5-year-old, it's like, oh shit. Like, my brain had to like start operating a certain type of way. But through all the injuries, you spend a lot of time sitting down. You spend a lot of time doing things that you wouldn't necessarily be doing because you'd be doing what you would probably be doing if you weren't injured, to some degree. You have a broken leg. It's like you can't move correctly or even move normally for maybe 3 months. That happens to you twice a year. It's like 6 months of your life that year was sat sitting down. You know what I mean? Watching all of life like kind of pass you by. Eventually it kind of starts wearing on the mind. But you also get to a point where if you can make best friends with your thoughts, and understanding like going through a tough time, like, okay, this is my life right now. Like I have to figure this out. You know, like my biggest thing is I never wanted to be a handicap. You know, like the doctor told me, it's like, you know, you have a very, very high chance of not making it through. And I'm 33 in this condition. And, you know, it's kind of like a miracle statistic. You know, my father has it too. And, you know, I think we beat it with, you know, exercise. Like we beat it with the gym. But the whole disorder, like in its own, like, you know, it puts you in like an extremely vulnerable position at all times. Like think about when you're younger and you're a young man, it's like, you know, your guys are always wanting to play around, roughhouse, like play sports, like, you know, you can't do any of that. You know, you got the energy and it's like, well, what do you do? So you can't run around, you trip, you fall, you break a leg. I've done it. You know what I mean? Like just, that was it. It's like, oh shit, like I tried to be normal and then it ended up, you know, going against me again. You know, I almost start getting into a mindset where it's like, you know, what am I allowed to do with my life before, you know, it stops me again? It's probably why I'm so fucking nuts now. You know, I've learned to just like manage my risk. You know, it's like, hey, I'm not going to go play football, but I will 100% take acid and jump out of an airplane. You know what I mean? Like the control to it is, it's like, it's just thought of on a different level. Like how extreme can you live your life without putting like some type of physical force on your body? You know what I mean? It's such like a crazy concept. But like, I sit there and I say this because I know people have the greatest revelations in their life, like when they have a chance to sit down and just, you know what I mean, take a minute to breathe. And I got that opportunity so many times, and it was like I was always reminded. You know, think about if you were reminded something over 70 times, but you could like, you had no control over when it was going to happen. You know what I mean? You kind of have to start living in a sense of like, I have to find some way to live my life without like not being a handicap to others and a handicap to myself. You know what I mean? So it kind of gave me this like extremely independent like mindset. You know, like in the beginning, you hurt your leg, like you got a cast on, you can't move. It's like mom and dad come over to help you. They get you your stuff. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I've had to have like my parents at some point like help me up take a shit. You know what I mean? Because it's like you can't move. And it's like you're just sitting in your thoughts like you don't want to feel this way. Like you don't want to be like, you know, like a basket case to the family, like some type of stress. So it's, you know, it starts creating that mindset to where it's like, all right, what could I do to not be such like an inconvenience? You know what I mean? Like it was really one of them things where it's like, I don't really want to see, you know, the world depend on me. You know, like, oh, he needs help. He needs help. You know, I don't think like many people get that, you know, like really putting themselves at a point where like they're not an inconvenience to others. You know, I thought about that like a lot in those times I was injured. It's like, you know, everybody always would want to help. Like, yo, can I go get you something? And I'm like, nah, I'm going to get up. Like, no, I got you. I'm like, nah, I'm going to get up. You know what I mean? Because you know what? I have to learn to get up. You know, I can't be like somebody helpless for the rest of my life. And just, you know, I had that at like an extremely early age. That's why no system ever made sense to me, because I couldn't follow a normal one to begin with. You know, like schooling didn't work for me, like sitting down, learning one thing and like realizing like you're somebody who's in an 8th grade class of like people just, you know, getting a boner for the first time. Like that's their biggest concern. It's like, I'm trying to walk normal. You know what I'm saying? It's like something you don't see. Like it's like one of those hidden things like in somebody's mind. You know, when they say like you don't know like what someone's going through? Like no one knows like I go through this for the most part. The last bone I broke was, I'd probably say my foot. I was going to walk down the stairs into the basement and like my toe like kind of like tripped up on it. When I came down, I like smacked it really fucking hard and just hurt it. Probably like 6 months ago. The worst one, my back. One of those things that, you know, you learn a very valuable lesson. And this is kind of like what I like to preach to all like my young guys like in the gym too, because it was a gym accident. I wanted to do powerlifting. I almost like had my ego set at some point in my life to where it's like, all right, if I'm going to be like glass internally, then I need to be a fucking brick shithouse externally. So I just focused on all my time being at the gym. And I got to the point where somebody my size got ridiculously strong. I even questioned that too. It's like, how can I move 315 pounds, but like if I trip the wrong way, like I'm crushing my leg. You know what I mean? It was almost like one of those things that you can't even really explain. like living in that mindset is kind of like, huh, like, all right, so here's an example. I dislocated my shoulder at the club because someone bumped into me too hard, and like I had a small fracture on my collarbone. And at the time, it's like, I was drinking, doing my thing, and the next thing I know, I woke up in the morning, I'm like, holy shit, like I'm fucked up. And I'm like, yo, this is some wild shit. So that's like how almost like random the disorder could be. But I could sit under there with all this pressure of weight and just move it. You know what I mean? And then I kind of got to a point when I was that strong, I kind of realized it was just impact. Like I had like the strength of my body like I had asked for. Like I put the time in the gym to actually make my body strong enough to be able to go do stuff. Like I said, my life didn't change till I was 18. That's when I really found the gym. You know what I mean? There's still certain things that like just certain types of impact will just break them. It is what it is. There's just a certain force that it just can't take. Like my bones lack collagen. So it's like no matter what somebody says, oh, take collagen, do this, do that. It's like, no, like, some of the only things that can really help you are like a growth hormone. Like the market sells you all these like products and it's like, nah, it's just to keep feeding the beast. It's like, it costs money to really fix a problem like this. You know what I mean? So it's kind of where, everybody wins on the other side, not the people with it. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like, I guess talking about it, it's kind of one of them things where, I've never really done that. It's definitely affected barbering. Absolutely. And I didn't realize it till probably like 2 years ago. It's like, I'm starting to hurt. Everything. Like for the longest time, like I've worked crazy hours, and like somebody older is like, oh, you're going to get older one day. And it's like, well, I felt that feeling that he was talking about when I was 15. My body had already been beat to shit by 15. So it's like, once I started like physically working at it, it's like, okay, now my life is kind of normal, like physically, but like now that I'm doing that and I carried it into my 30s, it's like, holy shit, there's like a massive acceleration of like my body at this point, and not in a good way. Like I can keep in shape, I can stay, low body fat, I can do all that, I can stay limber, but like at the end of the day, it's like you said, it's kind of just like a bubble wrap. The day the wrapping's not on, it's like not really sure where that's going to take me. It's kind of like the gamble of life. You kind of have to look at it in a sense, like what's necessary at that point. I think the hardest thing about having it is almost having like a no excuses type of attitude. You know what I mean? And you almost don't wish somebody to have the problem you have that gives you the understanding you're trying to teach them. Like that's like the hardest part, to having this. To some degree, when I hear people talk about their problems, I'm like, it's a very simple problem. It's almost like just kind of get through with it, whatever you're scared of. You know what I mean? Like imagine if your life was in jeopardy, like at any moment, like you get into a car, like the only thing you can think of is like, yeah, I hope nobody hits me. You know what I'm saying? I don't even want you to fucking tap me. Like I remember there was this one time, me and an old girl, we were driving. Actually, I'm going to restart that. So this was the crazy like part of it. Like me and my old girlfriend, we were driving out of Wawa and she makes the turn and then here comes this crazy fucking old school muscle car just like sliding through the parking lot. And now I'm in the passenger side and I'm just like, oh shit, he's sliding right into us like he can't stop. And we're both just sitting there and I'm like, hold on. And then bang, he hits the car. And I remember like I was able to brace myself up top. But then I remember my foot had got lodged like underneath. And then all I felt was crack. And I felt my foot like crack right in that instant. It cracked in like 3 spots. And it was just because like the force of the accident went through like that area. And it was like, boom. Got out, adrenaline. I was ready to fucking kill this guy. And then like, I think 10 or 12 hours later, I was like, holy shit, I can't walk on this thing. Like I just fucked my foot up. It was probably like 8 years ago, I think. I don't know. It was a little bit ago. it's weird. Like, you know, some people can remember an injury. I've had so many, I forget, like, you know what I mean? I forget when I had them. You know, I remember, you know, when I fucking completely dislodged my back the one day, like I slipped a disc and then fractured a part of my spine deadlifting. And like, that was a fucking nightmare, dude. My whole life was destroyed for like 6 months. Couldn't walk, was like walking with a brace, like, and it's like, you know, picture your life has to stop for 6 months. Like, what do you do? Like, that's what I've always explained, like backup plans, like, and it's like these, like, basically like this disorder, like kind of taught me how to like prepare for life. Like sometimes people just, yeah.
Really does about that. I was gonna say having this, because you said this. When did you really start getting affected? At what age?
Oh, it was like out of the womb. Like it was close. Like within like the first, I don't know, few weeks, I was born. My whole body. It's just wherever it was wherever the injury took at that point.
Were you play sports,
Uh,
or did you not? For the fear.
I played chess and I swam. Swimming was like a massive outlet for me because I could go as hard as I wanted to. Hey, I was just in a pool. Like it was the safest thing for me to do, and yeah, it was the one thing I actually like excelled like decently at, you know. And I was only doing it for 4 years.
Swimmers like Michael Phelps, pretty sure is over.
Yeah, that's why I didn't get a scholarship. Yeah, ironically, like I have an extremely, so here's a way my disorder affects me physically in a really weird way. I'm not sure how wide this shot is, but to give you an idea, I'm 5'3", and I have a 6-foot wingspan. So as I was growing up, I did break a lot of lower bones. So like a lot of the growth plates have been affected, like the way I grew. So I have like Donkey Kong long arms, like short, stocky legs, you know, like a massive torso. Yeah, kind of like a gorilla in a really, really weird way. But like I don't have big arms because they were actually grown to their full potential. Like my grandfather he's 6 foot. Now my dad also has this disorder as well. You know, it kind of runs genetically. So, you know, he also has like a really short frame. Like most people with osteogenesis imperfecta, like they're more on the shorter side. Like most of them are very short because you're almost breaking growth plates like as you're getting older. You know what I mean? So, you know, most of them are in short stature. Crazy thing is like most of them don't live past the age of like 4. And this is like where I say it's the gift and the curse of having this disorder. You know, what it has taught me, like the lessons in life, like you kind of have to understand, like to get through life a certain type of way. You know, it's very difficult to instill that with the people around you. Like it is a purely individual perspective, like to understand how much things are against you at one point, you know, just to be normal. Do you know what I'm saying? Like just to get like a perspective of like something where you're not walking around in fear or, you know, I can't live my life. Like most kids don't make it. They die. So to be this age, it's like I was given like the miracle of being able to kind of be in this state with it. But the negative is I still carry every injury with me up until this day. So that's where like this whole disorder is like, it's a gift and a curse. Like it allows me to think, you know, a lot more sound about like things I've never been able to understand in life. Like as I was going through things in life, you know, at this stage, it's kind of like things have always just happened and you can't control them. Like, not to say I felt like I've been a control freak, but like over the years, like having this disorder, like I've given up more control. Like every little bit, it's like, I don't need to control this anymore. I can't. Like, I don't need to control this anymore. I can't. Like, I just got to that perspective where I'm like, it was tough for this to be the lesson I had to learn to think that way. You know, like that's, you know, everybody's got their one, and it's like, this is just one I can't compare with like other people too. Like if anybody were to hear this, like I would love to talk to them, you know, just to get their perspective. Like, you know, it's me and my dad. That's it. Like I've never met nor even heard, like I talk about it a little bit because some people like have like kind of chatted about it. It's like, hey, he has this. And it's like, oh, I heard somebody like that is this niece's cousin like has that. And at that point, it's like, is it really credible? Like, because I've gotten to the point where I've questioned sources, like, yo, if this person really has it, please reach out to me. And, it never goes anywhere. Because, dude, I'm telling you, like, I'd love to talk to somebody who has this just to see what their day-to-day is like, because at this point in my life, I credit a lot of like how I'm able to move because of the gym and, the different trainers I've had to get me through all my injuries and all my rehabs, all that shit. You know what I mean? Because at one point I had the option to kind of give up the one part of what I thought was going to be a different outcome. Like I'd always been in the gym, always rehabbing, like and getting back to normal and then starting over every time. Okay, restart, bang. Okay, what are we doing now? And there was one injury, like I said, I fucked up my back on the hex bar, like deadlifting. It was the first time I'd ever been in so much pain that I actually decided to, accept the Percocets. Like my entire life, I don't judge people that take them for this reason, but like I've had so many injuries that when people talk about like they need painkillers, it's like, nah, you need to understand what that pain is. Like that is very real. It's not going to go away. And you need to actually understand how to fight it and be friends with it, And I guess that's like not what these doctors fucking do. The first thing they're trying to do is get you on the first pill. Oh yeah, we got a Percocet, Oxycontin. Oh, if you can't sleep, we'll give you Xanax or give you whatever to make another customer. And it's like, I took the customer approach for the first time. My back was fucked up. I couldn't move. I couldn't shit right. Like, I remember trying to take a piss in a pan, and to even move was the most like fucked up thing I could. You know what I mean? Your body just starts going into a shock. So I took a prescription of Percs, and I think secretly, with all the connections I had from Barber, I quietly became like a Percocet addict for like 6 months. Nobody knew. Even my girlfriend at the time, like nobody knew, and it was just that quick that I knew how dangerous these like pills were and why I wasn't taking them in the beginning. But I thought, with real pain, like you get through it. I couldn't tell you the pain in the back. I was so fucking high, like I don't remember. Yeah, I was sick for like 2 weeks. And I don't take off of work for shit. Like I very rarely take off of work. And the first week I took off, I think for the first 2 or 3 days, I was just puking miserably. I was like, yo, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, I see how people can't get off these. Like, I get it. All I wanted to do was just eat one that day. My nerves were shot. I was like, fuck. And like the whole time I'm sitting there trying to like my girl's at work, not knowing what the fuck is going on. And I'm sitting here trying to detox like off of pills. Cause like I always had a thing, like I never wanted to be labeled like someone that went that direction. It was always like a taboo in like my life because of who and how like pills affected people. It was always a nasty road. So again, why I didn't want to take them. But I don't know. Like fitness changed it. The pills gave me a whole perspective of like how dangerous like the world is that's in pain. Like the world in pain, you know what I mean? Like not just me, the world. Like
Then, was this before or after you started hitting the gym?
This was during like the gym where I thought my body was the strongest, which it was. Like my muscles were the strongest, but my muscles were stronger than my bones. And I just fucked my shit up. Maybe I knew I was pushing my limits. Like I guess with this, like with the mindset I grew up with, it was always like you're always finding new ways to figure things out. So like your options open up. So limits also become like limitless. So like any idea seems like it could work if you could kind of think of it that way. It's kind of like when Kanye West talks, they think he's crazy. And it's like, yeah, like some people think your first thought that you speak has to be the right one. And it's like, no, let me just ramble like a couple of them. Don't judge me for the first few. I don't think people do that, And as a creative person, shit, sometimes I think that way. Like I think in like compounds and I got to like put them all together and shit. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think we get banished for that though. Like it's like an odd train of thought to where it's like, I would never want somebody to be in my position to have to think this way, even though they think it's such a benefit. Like in my mind, like since I have this, I have to protect myself at all costs and not just physically. You know, like I work hard so that I could like financially protect myself. If I go down for 6 months, got to get a surgery. It's like, I have to be prepared for that. And like being prepared for that helped me prepare for life. You know, it was like, oh shit, like if I'm going to prepare for this and I have to be like disciplined to do that, it's like, well, wait a minute, if I just maintain the same discipline, it's like my life, like I started building a life. And it was kind of just based upon like, holy shit, I needed to figure out one part, but in learning that one part, it created 5, 6, 10, like it was just a whole different like compound of thought. You know, I never had my problems figured out because I was always trying to just get over another injury. You know, maybe hit a couple drinks, you know, take it away, go party, forget about like what I was going through, you know, but
Aside from in the club, getting your shoulder fucked up, how did this disease?
what do you mean? A lot of times, that's why I always like to have a section. I don't want to be bumping into a bunch of people. Plus, I'm short, man. People knock my fucking drink over all the time.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's interesting that you're kind of like an interesting cocktail of like, I'm guessing the first domino of Jay Hollywood that got knocked down was this disease, which caused you to do this, caused it. So it's like you just said, you need to have a good section. You need to not be around people so you don't get hurt. Well, in order to not be around people and not get hurt, you need to have money. So in order to have money, now there's like a part of your brain that's probably like, all right, well, I got to do the grind so I can you could pay for the bubble wrap around you.
Yeah. And I think it also goes into like, I think so. I love how you put that too, because to some degree, it's like I even do that with like how I interact with people. Oh, I always want to be nice to people. I'm not here to compete with you. I'm not here to compare with you. It's like if we can compare something specific, it's like, cool, let's do that. Like, but I don't look for it to be a competition. Like, I don't like competing with people on a level of life. Life is a very like individual type of journey. And I think that's kind of, it's got to be to yourself. Like, I don't like comparing like what you're doing to what I'm doing. You know what I mean? That's tough for me.
That's empathy. And the reason why you have, it's like I'm saying, you go backwards on what was the first domino. The disease, you've been in so much fucking pain, 70 broken bones. You have reached the maximum pain, I guess. And
then I went to the tattoos, so that's a whole nother.
Yeah, you literally experienced maximum pain on all accounts. Physical, internal, external, and emotional. And that's allowed you to have empathy towards someone else because you're like, if someone's having it the maximum in their world, like,
yeah, that's a good point.
Barber, because you could talk to people, and then your hands you just naturally have some kind of you're good with your hands, and then through practice you got even better. And also the fact that now you can empathize with people, talk to people, they wanted to come back and talk to you, and then also get a good cut, so on, so on, so on, which then, see what I mean? It all snowballs. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, I guess that it is kind of where it led to. It's weird when you think about it like that, like this project, it's like actually piecing together like certain parts I never really like understood. Like somebody actually asked me like, yo, how did you get here? I was really fucking, yeah, but I was so confused. I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, I don't know. I got to take a step back for a second. And it was kind of like, I explained the bone disorder. I was like, look, my whole life I've been in pain and you can beat it. Like you can beat it mentally. Like you just have to accept it. Like everything you just have to accept. It's almost like, if like you're in church, do you accept your sin? You know, all that crap. It's just like, do you accept? It's like, if you choose to accept, that should relieve you of your feeling. And for me, it's like half the battle when it came to this was mental, to where once I understood the physical pain of my body, as opposed to like, now I'm upset mentally, my anxiety, like this or that. It's like, no, okay, I've literally leveled to where it's like, I understand what I feel like. You know, when everybody talks about vibes, it's like, what if every day of your life you felt like shit and you had to change it? That's where it's like, if you could grow that from nothing, like it creates like a fortress of solitude, like in your own head. It does, like, but you have to like accept it from its most basic perspective. Like how basic can you like bring yourself back to rebuild the correct way? And I've done that over 70 times in my life. Some people go through it once or twice, 3 times maybe. And that's not like life's problems either. That's just like my physical problems. Like I live a life just like everybody else. I've had arguments with people, made money, lost money, crashed a car. Like, I live just like everybody else, just with just a very cautious mindset. I'm very cautious when I talk to people. I don't like to offend nobody. I like to be very easygoing with them. And like sometimes I don't know how to do that because they have their own means of how they communicate. But again, it led into Barber and, with how easy it is for me to talk to somebody. If someone's reciprocating like what I'm saying to them, it always creates like some type of everlasting growth. Like it's like healing an injury. It's like you start from the bottom and you work your way up to get strong. At this point in my life, half my body is like callus. Like when a bone breaks, it like develops the callus to like rebuild it. Half of my body, when you look at an x-ray of mine, is just blotches. It's just blotches of callus. Like it confuses the shit out of a doctor who's never seen it. But then if you look at me physically, like I've walked into I forget where we were at years ago. We were at some hospital and Dr. Mariani, like my primary guy that's been following me since I was born, I've been his like number one case. Like, I'm like his project in life. And he took me to this one center or whatever, and they all started like looking around to see where the guy that was injured. And I was standing right there, and they're like, I can't wait to meet this guy. Like they were so intrigued, and I'm like, I'm just standing right here. They had no clue it was me. They're looking at like the physique, like they're like, it can't be him. And I'm like, no, it's me. And we just beat the odds, like with physical exercise, with like, the serotonin being released when you work out, like gives you a reason to be happy. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's an instant spike. I preach the gym like so much that it's like, you don't even need to be lifting like a pro bodybuilder. You just need to be physically moving your body, like getting out, like all that shit that's in there, the cortisol, the means to want to move, And for me, it's like, mine was almost like crushed 70 times. It's like, you got to rethink your method each time, each way. And it's like, it kind of just shaped my whole perspective to just, like you said, always be cool with people, always try to work with people, like expand, like, philanthropy is always a big thing. So it's like, you give back, like, I think when you learn so much about life that like you see how, and this may sound like extremely arrogant, like, and I never mean it to be this way, but like when you have such a deeper understanding and you have the experience of it, it trumps people's assumptive conversation. Like I have too many people in my life that talk to me about like assuming conversation. And it's like, yo, let's bring the reality in. Like I've had to focus on reality so much that it's like when I'm dreaming, it's like, I hope that I'm asleep. Because if I'm awake, it freaks me the fuck out. I'm like, fuck, I got to get going again, Yeah. Push the limits. In 35. Yeah. I mean, I guess like it's just, it really is one of those things that just, I wish when I talk to people and they listen to me, it's like they really listened. But if you give them like the physical like feeling of where it's coming from, it's like, fuck yeah, I will do that. And it's like, it's really hard to like teach people something that they don't have the burn, from the stove. It's like, oh, well, did you touch the stove or did you just listen to the person telling you not to touch it? And it's like, I didn't touch it. It's like, all right, so you were smart. The other guy did. It's like, he'll never do it again. Okay, well, he's wise. You know what I mean? And I guess like my whole life has been like a constant battle. It's like, what's smart and what's wise, Try this. We fucked that up really bad. Super bad. Did this over here. Yo, crushed it. And it's like, we really nailed it. And it's like, cool. And just going through the journey each time and just remembering where each part was, like how you got there. Like, I think it's the key to life. Like when people can't figure their life out, it's, sometimes I think it's a lack of having time to understand what's actually happening in it. It's like, what are you really doing? Like, can you like sit outer perspective of yourself as if you were a sim and just, what are you doing? Like if you look at all the statistics of my body, it's like, I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm doing, physically in any realm. Like I'm still standing for multiple hours a day, not like I still do it. But as I said, I'm getting older now. I'm starting to feel it. Like, this was always something that, And this is where I get to a point where, this is what people had never they never really understood about it. It's like when people say, you live a long life, there's something that certain people kind of understand where it's like, no matter what your perspective is, it's like mine is completely different. I don't have a long life. I know that because at 33, going into 34, I feel like a 60-year-old. And because I maintain what I do is why I can still look like I have it. It's always been a very, very scary thought, longevity for me. Like, can I make it to longevity? And then I look at my dad and I look at him and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to be okay till I'm 55. Like, my dad's my only example. In this entire world, he's the only example. So it's like, fuck, like, he's still working out, still good. It's like, all right, I need to follow these things. Yeah, and it's, like having good examples. Like, he was thankfully the one example, he never really talked about it much. He was like to himself, like he just lived life. And I think probably because he never had nobody else to talk to about it with, in some weird sense. Apparently, it's just me and him that have it right now. And it's crazy. I think he's over 40. He's broken over 40 bones. I think he's got more surgeries than me, but he's definitely broken over 40 bones. Me, I've had less surgeries, but more breaks. Yeah, I got the high score. He's got more seasons. I got the high score. 40. Cool. Yeah, I think it would be a good way to wrap this one. I guess it kind of just comes down to, like, the excuses that I hear people give. It's like, I don't know, like, what's really your excuse? Like, there's so many people that are telling you, what's your excuse? It's like, what do you really have to stand upon that, like, the average person, like, doesn't already do? Like, I'm doing something that you can't find people that do what I do. And it's such like I never used it in a cocky sense. It was more like in a survival sense. Like, I know this is what's wrong with me. I got to navigate life like a very, very specific type of way. I want no enemies. I don't want conflict. I like prosperity for everybody. So, like, that's where my energy goes. If I feel that coming into my life, I like get out of it real quick. But like I said, blessing and a curse. Definitely one of them things where it opened my life to where if anybody would listen to it from a serious perspective, like, they would be the smart man and not the wise man. Sometimes, like, when you have this kind of understanding, you have like a light year over the people around you. And like I said, not in like an arrogant sense, but like I would be digesting information at 15 years old from like an 80-year-old, and it actually like relevated to my life. Dude, it's a beautiful thing. It allows you to live like for some type of a purpose. It's like, all right, like, if I do have limited time here, or at least limited time to feel great about living, like, you got to feel good about life. I know what it's like to feel like shit in life. You have to feel good in life. You have to. And I'm just trying to beat the odds of having a good life. Other things in that process and all the energy I put out towards it, like, got me to this place. Like, and like I said, it was an amazing thing to be in this predicament, but I'm also realizing the severity of, that an end is real. I think some people go through life and they kind of just like envision that they will be here at a certain time, and they're not taking care of themselves. And one day they wake up and they're like, fuck, I'm sick. You know what I mean? I'm hurt. Like, I'm this, I'm that. It's like, you have to prepare for that. Like, you do. And like, for me, it's like, I'm forced to prepare for that. So it's like, now my understanding of when it's time. I already, when I got jumped in Xfinity and died at that moment, from being jumped, all that contact, like all that pounding, like it broke multiple bones, fractured my skull, broke my cheek, shattered my eye socket, broke my knee, one rib, my ankle. And that was within 45 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, my body had gone into complete and utter shock. That the only reason I was still alive was because of the drugs in my system. And at that point, it was like, it was another life changer. You know what I mean? Like, where you just gotta like, okay, what the fuck just happened? Like, I laugh at shit like that now, dude. And that's where it's like, all that shit kind of went out the door for me. Because you don't need, like, basically this was something crazy that happened when I came out of the hospital. I had all that time to think. Like, I could barely speak. I could barely walk. Like, for 6 months, I wasn't even a person. I was just there. You know what I mean? Just like there as whatever was existing. I got to a point where when I had understood that the drugs were what kept me alive, it let me realize that taking any type of substance at this point in my life isn't necessary, because if that's what actually kept me alive, I was in a scenario where that was useful. And I realized that at that moment, no drug is useful outside of something like that. So if I'm not in them type of situations, the fuck do I need to be doing drugs for? Like, you almost like learn, like, nah, that's wrong. Like, you've made that mistake, like, and when life's just kind of taking you for a ride and you don't have anybody guiding you where you go, you're on your own independent path, like with a fucking chip on your shoulder, you know what I mean? Like, you take it where it goes until like something stops you. This one just happened to be a little more intense than the rest. I wish like the, best prosperity on people and that they can figure their issues out, because if they can do that, there's a whole nother side to life. That's like a big thing. If I could like end this on this note, like the man that thinks the same way at 30 as he did at 21 wasted 9 years of his life, so like the day you have a problem and you understand you have one, like you fix it that moment, like you do it, because as soon as you fix the problem, the new mindset allows you to grow from it. If you don't fix that problem for 9 years, then you've wasted 9 years of the next step to your own mind. You know what I mean? And then like that was like one of the biggest things like that this taught me. If you just sit there and sulk at it, like the time is passing. Now for me, I know the time is passing a little faster. So with it passing a little faster, I'm a little more serious about the things that I want. Keeps you just motivated and moving. Like, if someone put a clicker on you and they said, this is how much time you got, you'd start looking at things like so much more different, but
They made that movie, but what's the name? Justin Timberlake.
I have that tattoo right here, the end time tattoo. I love that fucking movie. Fucking shit. Thanks for listening to this one. Rant.